Hey guys, welcome back to the Not Quite Everyday Dan. We are going to be having something a little bit different. This is obviously the first time doing a face video and everything on the Substack as well as YouTube. And today we have a guest. We're going to be doing a guest interview with someone that I have long admired. I'm really super excited about this. I hope you guys enjoy it as well. We're going to jump right into this interview and go from there. Let's go. Well, hey, Ben, thank you so much for jumping in and being willing to come do an interview for my Substack slash YouTube.
You
Um,
bet.
just
Thanks for
really
having
cool.
me on, Dan. This is my first Substack interview. I've never done it. You were like, "Come on, Substack." I'm like, "Sweet, never done that. Let's go." So thank
And
you.
and honestly, Substack's getting more popular. I feel like it's one of those things where it does feel a lot like WordPress or any one of these other blogging platforms, except you can tie in like podcasts, there's video stuff. It's kind of all across the board. And then they kind of separate the way that you can do Patreon. They can do that same thing where you can like have, hey, you get free stuff and then you get paid stuff. A lot of my readers are like teenagers and everything who are broke, and so I don't charge them for the content. Um, I tell them that I should sometimes, but they haven't done it yet. But
But you're influencing young minds. That's a cool way to do it. It's awesome.
yes. And it's funny too because I have your NAFs tool roll, and I was on vacation recently, and we had some friends with us, and I took like almost my entire knife collection, and we spent a couple of them, at least the youngest of the four that was with us, along with my family, wanted to whittle like constantly, and also it was like all pine stuff, so which was uh, they're all like the knives are like all boogered up and stuff. But it was funny because they like using the tool roll was an example. I'm like, they're, oh, what do you like take care of your knives? I'm like, yeah, you should absolutely take care of them. And like even your content has been really awesome because you talk about stuff in like just basic how to like tear downs and stuff like that is really helpful for those of us that are maybe a little bit more mechanically disinclined.
I probably fall like right in the middle of like mechanically inclined and totally hopeless.
Hmm.
Like I'm not afraid to like get a table saw out or a chop saw and make things. But it also like uses a part of my brain that does not come naturally at all. And I think that's what does come naturally for my brain is like communication.
Right.
So my degree is in broadcast and film, and I remember like sitting in my classes in college and like writing, and I could
Mhm.
tell like once I had learned how to tell a story beginning, middle to end, it was like I would sit down and just like crank it out and it just flows. And I think that's one thing about a career, like you have to find things that flow. So for me, taking a mechanical topic, breaking it down and telling how it works is actually quite
Mhm.
fun. Not that I'm good at the mechanical topic, but I'm not bad at telling about the mechanical topic. And I
Mhm.
guess not to toot my horn, but I think I'm smart enough to understand the mechanical topic just well enough to be like, okay, this is how it works. I don't have to be an engineer to do it, but I can explain it in layman's terms in a way that people pick up on it.
Right. Well, it's what I think they call it kinetic learning or kinesthetic learning, one of those things where it's like when you do it, you grasp it a lot more.
Yeah.
Especially to like knives and mechanical stuff is a lot simpler to some extent than like computers or something. Don't get me wrong, computers are fun. Obviously, we have because of computers we can do this,
Yep.
but it's a lot simpler. Like if I break a knife or a tool or something to kind of be like, okay, how do I fix this? And you can a lot of times see the problem, like, and you can touch it and you're like, oh, this is how I mess this up.
Yes.
Um, except for knife centering. Sometimes that's just really hopeless. Um,
But it's been interesting for me as we've gotten into manufacturing and understanding how knives are made. I'm starting to look at blade centering a little bit differently because it's like, well, maybe your two sides aren't perfectly flat,
mhm,
right? The two handles, or maybe one of your ceramic bearings is something is wrong with it. So there's all of these, like one of the most interesting things about knives for me is just this ability to keep going down the rabbit hole and
mhm.
like sort of started in the marketing side, and now it's like, all right, we're headed in the manufacturing side. Well, what does that mean? How do we make a fixed blade? Okay, but we've made a fixed blade. Could we make a folder? How would we do that? How would that work?
Mhm.
Um, and really like deep diving into the particulars of how are things made has been really fun for me as a career.
I was gonna say it's been very interesting because I've been you have been kind of floating around for me since the Blade HQ days, and like so for the past 5 or 6 years or more at least was when I found Blade HQ and I would watch those videos. And it's like you and Zach and Kurt and like those ones and remembered those ones and the What Is Up guys
Yeah,
and just kind of or even like the early days like when it was just like when your company which I realized we totally like didn't even jump in explain. So I'm going to deviate and say, for obviously for those that are like tuning in here like I have no idea who Ben is. I don't know what NAFS is.
why is this person sitting on this podcast?
Like why is he here? Could you give us the like the elevator pitch of who you are and what your company is?
Yeah. So my name is Ben Petersen. I am one of the co-founders of Knafs. We are a pocket knife company, and part of what we've staked our claim on is making pocket knives fun and accessible to all sorts of groups of people. So like we put space kitties on the sides of our knives. We don't make anything too crazy like tactical aggressive. Like
Mhm.
I'm somebody who loves adventures and I love to go out and do things, but I don't ever feel like I have to like have a certain style to go out and do a thing. I'm not a oh, how would I describe that? Like a cosplayer when it comes to an activity. Like
Mhm.
I like to ride motorcycles. I ride a motorcycle, dirt bikes. I ride an XR 400 from 1999, and I wear like a crappy helmet I found kicking around at a cheap store. It's like a road helmet, but I ride it off road. Like
Mhm.
that's just kind of I feel like the tools that you take with you should be good, but they should not prevent you from getting out and doing the thing. So I kind of have
Mhm.
this accessibility mindset and like making things easy for people to be involved in. And I think NAPS is part of that is we sort of meet people where they are and we take them on adventures with tools.
I was gonna say I mean, I have had your mouse pad for ages, and it's starting to get kind of grungy and dirty, but it's really fun for like as a reference guide. We're like, how what do I need to do, and looking over and figuring out from there. But just, I mean, it was interesting too when like Naps was kind of like accessories, the different things, and then you came up with the lander and how everybody kind of freaked out about that to some extent, where they're like, oh,
Yeah.
this thing. I remember the YouTube things were like, this knife changes everything, and I'm like, what do you? I'm like, what do you mean it changes everything? And then obviously the hot swappable scales is a huge thing. And I mean, it's funny. My wife teased me about this because I have the Lander 2, but I
Let's
have it
go.
in the Space Kitties because I'm like a major cat person. My cat
Cool.
is here. She's sleeping now. I wouldn't be surprised if she like decides to pop up maybe. But like having a knife that like so easily like you can pop it apart, slap on some new scales and not have to worry that like you mess something up. Like you meant like centering or like I missed a screw or something like it's like pop it off, put it back on was and taking less than 5 minutes
Yeah.
was that's a really awesome thing, especially for like, and this seems to be a thing with a lot of knife guys and just EDC people is like the whole customization thing, like
Yep.
beads. And so the whole thing, as well as those like the 3D printed scale files.
Yeah. It's something we really kind of played with, and I'll be honest, like we weren't the first to come up with that's a Lander one with some
Mhm.
Mexican blanket G Carta scales on it, but we didn't come
Mhm.
up with that idea of the hot swappable. We call it fast swap, but
Mhm.
it was something that was on these higher end knives, and I looked at it and I was like, well, what if you put it on a sub $100 knife, sub
Mhm.
I think at the time when it came out, we were looking at $65 on the Lander one. So even a sub $70 knife, the goal was to just make that accessible, right? Like if you wanted
Yeah.
to customize, you didn't need to buy a $200 knife and a $100 set of scales. You could actually print your own scales because we
Mhm.
released the step files on our website for all of the handles that we make. And it just sort of like this right to repair, power to the people sort of
Mhm.
feeling around the brand has been part of our special sauce, and It's really fun. I get a kick out of seeing what people make, and we have people ask all the time, like, how do I get into 3D printing? We give them printer recommendations, and it's like,
Mhm.
try this, you'll enjoy it, you know. And even if they get into it for a minute and they're like, yeah, actually, 3D printing isn't for me. It's just this idea of finding adventure with the tools that you have, whether that's
Mhm.
customizing them or climbing a mountain or going motorcycling or whatever. The goal is to get people outside and doing things that maybe they wouldn't
Mhm.
normally do.
Well, it's funny too, like with customization, like my dad is very much like that. Now, I maybe to detriment at some point because I gave him a SOG, I think it was the Aegis AT, and then I went that, and he's like, and he's older. My dad's in his 80s. He's like, I couldn't do it. He's like, so he took off the thumb studs, and then he took a grinder and like ground a huge gap, like chunk through it. He's like, I do this, and I was like, oh. But I've seen him where he had like a brand new knife and he's like he'd like would cut off the grips and I'd come back and he's like now it's a bone antler handle or something. So it's interesting. So like the customization thing like runs really deep for some people. I think not just for them like coming down like can't leave stuff alone. They got to tinker and everything. So it's really cool. And I know like 3D printing, like even here in New York, our local district has like a maker space with 3D
Yeah.
printers. So you can bring in like a thumb drive and be like, hey. And I mean, it's not like they're going to be like, no, you can't do that because it's just
Yeah.
handles. They're nothing
Yeah.
dangerous
Well,
about it.
I think so. I'm 38. I think Facebook came out when I was like 21 or
Hmm.
something. So like we have spent a lot of our lifetimes, people my age, consuming.
Hmm.
And whether that's Facebook, YouTube, whatever, we've grown up in this social media age as adults.
Hmm.
But now you have this next generation that is growing up as children with the access to all of these information inputs coming into their lives, and we've turned
Hmm.
into consumers.
Right.
And I think part of my hope as a business owner, part of my hope in creating things is to encourage other people to create. Don't just consume, go create. I love to whittle spoons. I like to go camping and I love to whittle spoons. And I
Hmm.
find myself sitting around a campfire often whittling a spoon. And I'm like, I don't want to whittle another spoon, but it's something about me just like as I'm sitting there, I just start whittling, a spoon
Hmm.
pops out, you know? And I think that if we can train the rising generation to be creators, not just consumers,
Hmm.
and that doesn't mean that you start a YouTube channel. Every kid these days wants to be a YouTuber.
Oh yeah.
What they don't understand is I've done YouTube at three different companies now, grown audiences. It is a terrible, mind-boggling hustle. Like
Hmm.
it's just very, very hard. And so everybody wants to be like this YouTube creator, but it's like, no, creation can happen in an engineering drawing. It can happen in a
Hmm.
spreadsheet. It can happen if you're an electrician, you know. There are places on Reddit where they post like awesome welds, like the beads and welds, or they post like
Oh.
awesome like electrical panel work that will be literally behind a wall. Nobody in the world
Hmm.
will ever see it, but that is an act of creation. And I think
Hmm.
as human beings, like that is like our biggest thing that we can do is create. And I think that especially in the age of the internet, is so easy to tear things down. Like you can, it's the analogy of like building a house versus burning a house down. You can burn a house down in five,
Hmm.
10 minutes, you know,
Oh
that's
yeah.
easy. But building a house is an act of creation. And I think if the world has more creators in it, people that are kind and willing to work with others and create, the world's a better place.
Well, I think too, you have, so this is one of those things, like I used to go on Reddit, like the r/EDC, but like, and that's
Yeah.
like a fun group and everything, don't get me wrong, but especially there are some communities, I think inevitably every community has its own level of toxicity that can pop up. Um, I noticed too, like if we look at the Moon Crew and all that, which, I was like, I have to be a part, having
Yeah.
the
That's our
lander.
Facebook group
Yes, as I
for
say.
NAFs, if you're unfamiliar. So,
Yeah, and it's a very positive, like overall, like just like the atmosphere. I like just going in and just scrolling through and seeing what people post, and like I know that owe in part to your company and everything, and how you guys kind of just are. Just, anytime you do videos, all your stuff, there's a certain vibe to it where I appreciate even when you posted that negative feedback that you had gotten about somebody just trying to say that it was like slapped on logos and stuff. Like, I'm sure that there's a lot of people that could come out of the gate swinging a lot harder than that, but like how you chose to address it did address everything in a way that was informational, kind, but also like, no, you're off base. Let's come back here. And like that's a really good thing to have in this space.
Yeah.
And
And I think that's something I've tried to cultivate over time. Just they always say don't feed a troll, but I almost feel like if you feed a troll enough information, they choke on it and they bail, like and we've tried to be very information heavy as a company. We run a
Mhm,
YouTube channel where we talk about how do we do things, why do we do things. We write blog posts, we do things like this where we get on and chat with people, and that's part of, like, I don't know if I have like a teacher soul within me, right? Like I don't want to just learn something. I want to teach others about it.
mhm,
And I get excited about bringing people along on the journey. And that
mhm,
that for me is super fun. Like I'll go down rabbit holes, not like on our YouTube channel. I've gone down some rabbit holes of like legal stuff, like what does Made in USA mean? There's been some lawsuits in the industry. How do the lawsuits work and things like that? And I don't mean to rabbit hole it, but then once I have, I'm just like, nah, we got to bring everybody with me, and
mhm,
it turns into an episode because what I'm learning is really fascinating to me. Not that I'm a lawyer, but like, what does Made in USA mean legally? How does that function with the Federal Trade Commission and things like that? And so I find things super interesting, and I'm like, come check this out with me,
mhm,
And it's not that I want to do Made in USA all the time, sort of like teaching, but like, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for my business? And how should you think about it as a consumer? I get
mhm.
a kick out of that stuff. I don't know if it makes me any money, but I enjoy it. So it's
Well, I
good.
think it really is helpful because, to be honest, like there's a lot of things that people don't know anything about until it affects them to some extent. Like for us, like inflation or tariffs and stuff
Yeah.
didn't matter to me. Like I knew that was important, and then I decided to buy a Nintendo Switch, like a nerd, because I am a nerd among other things. And I was like,
Love it.
oh, and then people are like, oh, the price is gonna go up, tariffs, maybe we won't get them. I'm like, wait, what? And then the knife, I think you had posted a knife video talking about it a little bit. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, so I can't get my knives or my game consoles as easily.
Yeah.
And so it was really helpful. Now all of a sudden it's on the radar and having someone explain what it means or like manufacturing, like how it works. I think you guys have done something where you've talked about OEMs and how that works and different vendors and everything. I was like, that makes a lot of sense. And then it also to me it kind of was really cool because I'm looking at the whole industry and realizing that there's a lot more teamwork involved with this industry with like the knife industry as opposed to like other ones where like okay, let's be honest, are Microsoft and Sony ever going to partner to make something like that? No, they hate each other and they're gonna like generally just be like nope. Whereas here we have all these companies that are all selling stuff, but yet you're also working together to produce it,
Yeah.
um, which is super awesome. Now you mentioned journeys and everything, and I wanted to kind of that was a good segue to the questions I had, and I sent them over because I'm a big fan. Well, I don't mind the whole like off the cuff stuff. Sometimes it's good, and I know some people like to prepare ahead of time. So the first question I was wondering about, because obviously everybody's like looking at you now, but like for you growing up, like what's your family story and kind of growing up in the Peterson home, like how did you become who you are today kind of thing?
It's such a good question. So I grew up northern Utah.
Hmm.
So kind of suburbia. When I was about 11, we moved to suburban country, is what I would
Hmm.
call it. Moved kind of like 20 minutes away, but it was a county of about 6,000 people at the time when I lived there. Went to a very small high school. I think there were 170 people in my graduating class. But I grew up in a family that so there were three boys, one girl in my family, so family of four. and we like to do things together. So I grew up motorcycling, four wheeling, shooting BB guns out into the. We had this common area behind our house, um, and I remember just like kind of a little bit of a free range childhood. My parents had really high expectations of us, so like school was always very important. Like if you came home with like an A minus, like my mom's sitting you down, and she's like, "What happened?" And you're like, "Well, it's an A minus, mom." She's like, "Did you do your best?" And you're like, "Well, I probably." She's like, "All right, do
Mhm.
better," you know. And I kind of grew up. I don't know that my mom was a tiger mom, but like my parents had really high expectations of us, whether that was school, piano. I grew up playing the piano. I was never very good at it. Talk about things that mechanically inclined, man. Like I just don't getting my brain and my fingers to work together and being able to count and
Mhm.
timing and all of that. I struggle with that, but I took piano lessons. Um, so, and I think in our family, like my dad's a musician, kind of a family of builders in the sense
Mhm.
of like not physical with our hands, but just trying to build people up and trying to contribute to the world, I guess would be the way I'd
Mhm.
put it. So kind of a long explanation, but that's where I'm from.
Well, I was gonna say it's our parents and our growing up life really do affect and like form a lot of who we are
Yeah.
for the good, for the bad kind of thing. Because obviously, regardless of what we do, our family, our parents and our family have enough of an input pack to like make us kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
And I do love that. I've liked where, you've kind of pulled back the curtain to some extent. I think you had on your the not Knafs at night on your YouTube where you had in the secret co-partner or whatnot, where you had your wife come in
My wife. Yeah.
and I thought it was super awesome, which I was like, and this is a funny story, but like I had been telling my wife a little bit, kind of the background. I was like, oh yeah, he's a co-founder of Knafs. He and his wife co-founded it, and she was kind of joking with me. She's like, well, I'm not going to start a knife company with you. I'm like, darn. I was like, well, there's other ones out there. So, but that's also because, and that's just joking between us. It's not like she's like, oh, you couldn't go do it, but just having fun. But it was really, I like that, you clearly are a family man.
Yeah.
And and this is kind of the thing. So if we come in, say we pull back the curtain and we come in and we look at your family's dinner table, what would they learn about you as a person and as a designer?
That's such an interesting question. So let me paint the picture here for a minute. I
Mhm.
There are six of us. We have a table
Mhm.
with six seats around it. So me, my wife, and four kids. And it's interesting. We always we eat dinner together every night. But it's funny because it's usually like this trickle effect. It's like 6 o'clock, like we're eating, like
Mhm.
get all the kids here. So it's like text the neighbors, like call off the front porch, like trying to get all the kids in. Eventually, we just kind of throw up our hands, and it's like, all right, we pray, we start to eat, and then like two kids will trickle in, and it's like, oh, I was
Right.
finishing this thing or whatever. But I think if you looked at our table, we're chaotic, man. It's like, hey, kids, how was your day at school? And they all talk over each other, and they
Hmm.
like, did you like the nachos at school today? And one will be like, I hate nachos. The other one's like, oh, nachos are the best, and it's a fight over nachos. But I think we've tried to create an atmosphere of um, peace, would be the
Hmm.
way I would put it. I think that there's nothing that stifles growth and creativity um, like contention.
Hmm.
And kids will be kids and adults will be adults. But I think that part of what my wife and I have really focused on is how do you create a peaceful atmosphere in your home?
Hmm.
And I think that that's a key to design. I think it's a key to creation
Hmm.
is you have to like when we talk about like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like shelter, water, food sort of thing.
Hmm.
Like if you do not have your basic needs met, you do not paint. You do
Hmm.
not like sit around and talk philosophy or why are things the way they are.
Right.
Like when you are struggling to eat or struggling for shelter or don't have clothing, right? Like those are the things that your animal instincts say we need these. And
Hmm.
so I think part of what we've tried to build in our home is this space where the kids have plenty of art supplies, have plenty to do. We have books all over the place. But none of that matters if there's not a peaceful place for them to live and
Hmm.
and exist. And so we tried to create a peaceful place.
Right. Well, I think, and that's a really awesome thing too, especially like legacy wise, like creating a safe, healthy, happy home life creates a legacy. Because if you think about it, like obviously we can create products and things that will outlast us, but like the biggest legacy that we're going to leave are like our kids kind of thing.
Correct.
And what they're going to look back and how they're going to remember us is a really big deal kind of thing. And I think your kid, my daughter's 11 and she's definitely smarter than me. That like I was a dumb 11-year-old,
Yeah.
but also I was a boy, and my dad was like, "Oh, do you want to go? We got some gunpowder. You want to go blow it up?" Yes. And so she's not doing those things, which probably help a bit for her, but like I think that's a really awesome thing. Um, Now, obviously, you and your wife have both been on YouTube. We don't see your kids a whole lot, so this is kind of a little bit of a side thing. Is that an intentional thing to kind of shield them from social media?
Yeah, like that's by design. We made a decision, oh, probably 10. My wife and I have been married 15 years, and we probably made
Mhm.
a decision, I don't know, as I was getting on YouTube when I was at Blade HQ, probably 13, 14 years ago. There are a couple videos that my kids are in.
Mhm.
Um, one of them I had my oldest daughter in a backpack, and I was like, I just needed a video that week, and so I took a camera with me and just
Mhm.
kind of did like this little snow hike with my daughter in the backpack, and it was great. But I think that was the first time, and maybe one of the last times we put our kids on,
Mhm.
because I got home, I got talking to my wife about it, and we were like, do we want our kids involved in somebody else's business
Right.
online? Because really, like family YouTube, you look at all these family YouTubers and people using their kids as part of their business story and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a quick route to the top of the mountain, man. Like kids are cute, people enjoy watching their stories, and darn it, I've got one kid in particular that could be a YouTube star. Like she's got a look and she says funny things, and like if we were to point a camera at her and and build that up, we could absolutely do it. That is not what I want as a parent, and I don't think that's
Right.
fair to the kids to plaster them on social media publicly. Like we have private accounts that we lock down, but I think there is value in letting the kid decide when they want to put their face and their name and their information online.
Mhm.
And I don't think it's my place as a parent to um, decide when that will be for them because they've got
Yeah.
the rest of their lives to join LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever social media time waster they want to do. Substack, perhaps.
Yes. Yeah. You never know.
You never know. But I think for me, it's a matter of our kids' privacy and our personal life should be personal. So,
I think it's really that's a good way of looking at it. I know that there's like a whole big thing across the country right now about like screen-free kids and everything.
yeah,
Um, I know here in New York they're doing it like the school systems are banning phones, and there's a whole different way. I know we're even going so far in our church's youth group now where we're like banning straight, like don't bring him the phone. If you
cool.
take him, we take him from you because like kids, like if a kid has a phone or like some kind of thing like that, there's like this extra wall that device is just a wall now between you and when we don't have them around. Like my wife and I have seen teens that like they have a phone, but then all of a sudden they don't have a phone. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they talk to us.
Different person. Yeah. And
Completely different switch.
I think it's interesting because even as adults, we are
Hmm.
all addicted to our phones. We're all addicted to like these dopamine hits as texts and
Hmm.
calls and notifications come in. And I think that we're losing something as a society and as a culture.
Hmm.
And it's challenging for me as a business owner because I'm like, well, I need to be on social media so that I can like you and I connected via Facebook,
Yeah.
right? Like if I did not have Facebook, I would not be having this conversation. If
Hmm.
YouTube did not exist, I would have never gotten into knives
Hmm.
and started a business. So I think sort of this moderation in all things, we've been feasting and just bloating ourselves on the internet and social media for 17, 18 years now.
Hmm.
which is a lifetime for some people, right? Like if you're 15,
Yeah.
it's been around your entire life. And I
Hmm.
think we're to the point where it's like, okay, is this good for us?
Yeah, we're
And yeah,
finally
being
figuring
deliberate
it
with our
out.
time. Yeah. And
And
I think there's still a long way to go.
yeah, I was gonna say like so, yeah, there's definitely like positives to social media. Like you said, like we would have never connected or like we look at like knife, just like knife YouTube as a whole. Like everybody has some recognition of everybody else because of that networking. And that would not have been as easy to do pre-social media. Like now we
Right.
have like crossovers where, big idea design is having someone come in and do like I think they're doing that Jot and Pop thing, which their
Yeah.
social media campaign with like the whole like kidnapping him to design that knife or whatnot has been like super entertaining to watch. But like seeing these kinds of or like the crossovers that you've done, because you've done quite a
Yeah.
few, which I think is really cool. 'Cause let's also be honest, like we all love to collect stuff in one way or another. And so like and yeah, knives are collectible. You could totally collect, but then imagine like having special like knives where it's like you could get this knife, and sure, like down at the core, that's the only thing. But like then you have these different touches on it that are like really awesome and very unique. And like they scratch that itch of like, oh, a collection kind of thing. Or a line. Like I know I say this because my daughter's not going to see this right now. So, but I know that like you have your Lander line, so I can look and be like, I'm gonna probably get my daughter like the Lander 5, I think, the more budget friendly
Yeah.
one, because that's one that if we go to Maine and then she loses it, I'm not going to be like, oh my goodness, I gave you this. Like, but
Yeah.
like, so there's positives and negatives. And so your kids with their ages and everything, so they may or may not do this, but do you think, have your kids ever kind of called you out for being like too focused or work, or maybe better yet, depending on their age, like called out because you're not paying attention, like you're kind of zoned, like not dialed in, so to speak?
Yeah, for sure. And it's challenging. I remember as a kid growing up, my mom, we had a neighbor just across the street,
Mm.
and she and my mom were really good friends. And they'd literally like be on the phone. You remember the old not walkie-talkie phones, but
Oh
the
yeah, the big old
the cordless.
cordless and everything.
Yeah,
Yep.
so she'd be like doing the laundry in the house, and they'd talk for hours, just chit chatting, chit chatting.
Hmm.
And I have these memories as a kid of like, oh, I feel a little neglected as my mom is chit chatting. I don't think I was neglected at all. As a kid, when you have something on your mind, your mouth starts to say it.
Hmm.
And so I remember as a kid, like my mom's doing the laundry, talking to the neighbor, and I'm like, "But mom, I have these needs, and I need them now." And kids struggle with patience, and so my kids have called me out to answer your
Oh,
question,
okay.
of like, "Dad, you're on your phone," and it's like, "Well, I am, but I'm also answering an email that will allow us to feed our family." And I
Hmm.
think that's where, like, if I'm scrolling Instagram on Reels or something stupid, that's where my kids should call me out. But
Yeah.
in the same way, I think as adults, we have, whether it's emotional needs or work needs or whatever, and there will be times when we have to do things. But I think it's be where you need to be and be 100% there.
Mhm.
I heard somebody say a couple of years ago, like there's no such thing as balance. There's just imbalance managed, right? When you are at
Hmm.
work, you're not a good dad when you're at work, right? Like when
Hmm.
you're at home, you're not going to be a very good employee. Now, when you're
Right.
self-employed, those things kind of run together a little bit, and I try to
Right.
separate them. But really, like where you are is going to determine what you're good at in that moment and
Hmm.
what you're bad at in that moment as well. But I think the trick is to find equilibrium in the imbalance. I guess maybe the way
Right.
I'd put it. So yeah, I
Well,
have.
that makes a lot of sense too, and I can kind of understand that because I'm like being hybrid. I'm home more often, so there's definitely times where like I'm home, I'm doing something, and then my daughter's like knocking on the door to be like, "Dad, can you please come kill this bug?" or something like that, or like I'm like hungry right now. Like you said,
Yeah.
like you're like I want breakfast right now. I'm like 5 minutes. Like, and of course they're like, "No, I'm going to starve to death if I don't eat now." It's like, no, you can wait a few minutes, but like balancing, yeah. And I think it's interesting too. Here's the cat. She finally
Yes,
decided to come.
cat.
Come on, cat. Oh, wow. And this
Yes.
is the floof.
Nice. We got a cat the other day on accident. Um, cats are part of Knafs's brand. You have a cat knife.
Yes.
I'm actually not a cat person. I had somebody ask the other day, like, how many cats do you have? And I'm like, zero, because like the hair, the maintenance of animals, all of that.
Okay.
So we ended up with a cat, and I was not involved in the decision to get a cat. Otherwise, we would not have a cat. So we ended up, I said, we can keep the cat, but I'm going to name the cat. And so we named the cat Coup d'etat, um,
Mhm,
coup for short,
mhm.
uh, basically a revolution. Uh, so we
See,
have a cat named Coup.
but and this is the slippery slope because when my wife was like, "Hey, we need a cat," I was like, I grew up, we didn't like cats. Where I grew up in rural PA, everybody would like just let their cats go. They go feral, they'd kill all the wildlife. And so like I didn't like them. I didn't want a cat. And my wife's like, but my wife grew up with a cat. She had her family's cat was like 20 when it finally passed. I mean, this cat was old. And so I was like, I don't. And then finally she persuaded me and then persuaded me because she was looking for a very specific cat that looked like her old one. It went from like, would you drive like a half hour to an hour to 2 hours, and then finally went. And I live in upstate New York, and she's like, "Would you drive to Virginia?" I'm like, I'm already this far in. Let's go. And so this cat was for my daughter. That was the plan. But then the cat decided along the way that she liked me instead. And then along the way, I became a cat person. Whereas like I come and I show my wife the knife and she's like, you're a cat person. I'm like, so then you need to be careful because you may be like, this cat may pick you, and then you may become a cat person. Where like our next YouTube video at Naps, there's Koo hanging out on your desk.
We might have to bring Coup on. Just I don't know if Coup would like that. He is a free range cat, and
Mm.
some days he loves you, and some days he hates you. And I feel the same about him, so that's just fine.
What's it? It's not mutually assured destruction. It's mutually assured dislike. Kind
Yeah,
of.
yeah. Like some days he's really nice, and other days he's like, I will bite you. He kind of bites occasionally. I've never had a cat that bites. We had a cat when I was a kid. Never bit. But anyway, cats are
Yeah.
fun.
That was one of those things where I thought was just now like how did the cat thing come about with Nafs? Like I don't know if you've mentioned it, but I don't remember ever seeing where it was
Yeah,
explained with the cat and all of a sudden like the Moon Crew and the Space Kitty and all that stuff. Like how
it's such a stupid origin story, but I love it. So when I came out with the banter knife, the Wee Banter, it's got a very flat handle,
Mhm,
and on a flat handle knife that's G10. This is not G10, but you get the idea. It's just um, very flat. I had a company in Tennessee reach out to me, and they were like, "Hey, we can print whatever you want on the side of this knife," and I was like, okay, so sometimes creative constraints are really helpful because if they said, well, we can print grass and trees on the side of this knife, I designed grass and trees. Well, they said anything.
mhm,
And so I just kind of needed a design. I've always liked space. I was like a space camp kid that went
mhm,
to space camp, and I just enjoy the adventure of like space. And so I was like, well, why don't I throw like some Creative Commons like shuttle pictures on there and the moon landing on the other side. And then I got looking at it, I'm like, well, I don't know. This is who knows if we're gonna do this. I'll find a Creative Commons cat and just chuck it on the side. And so just like I'm over there photoshopping it and it's like da, 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 da. And we ended up with a cat on the side of the knife with like NASA images behind it.
mhm,
And then on the other side was the moonwalk picture. And I threw a cat inside of the helmet. And I was like,
mhm,
this is cool. And so this company made a sample for me just so I could test the finish on like, did it hold up? And I'm carrying it around and I'm like, people would be like, they know I like knives. So they're like, what's in your pocket, Ben? And I'd hand it over and they'd be like, that is sick. And I did that probably 20 or 30 times. And I'm like, I'm onto something. Like I kind of stumbled into something really silly fun. And so we made like 300 units. We made 300 banter scales with these space cats on them. And my wife was like, those are never going to sell. I said, watch this. We sold all 300 in like 3 hours. They were gone. And so we ended up just like replicating that a couple of times. And then I was like, this is our mascot on accident. It's kind of like Coo the cat, right? Like,
Mhm.
did I want a cat? No. Did I get one? Yes. You know, and I think sometimes when the cat comes into your life, you say, okay, it's my cat
Mhm.
now. So we have two space kitties. We have Spank, she's the mission commander, and Gary, who's kind of a lovable tubby cat. So,
I thought, well, this is where like a brand that has like, well, you said like making nice fun, like the Space Cats make it fun, and then it makes it
yeah.
like approachable because like my daughter could care less about any knife that I have. However, she sees the Space Cats, she's like, oh, that's cool. Or then I had it
Yeah.
at church, and I showed some of the teens like cats, and one of the teens, she's like, where did you get that? Can you send out where to get it? I'm like, well, ask your parents first. I'm not going to give this. I'll give your parents the link first because I don't want to be like, oh, the youth leader just totally gave us a link so they could buy knives. They
Yes,
know all.
that's
You gotta play safe. Have to be careful with that. But like,
correct.
but like the funness and obviously the space, you never could tell that you like space. Judging by your background and
I
everything with your
know.
photos. So was that kind of what then, kind of going along that, is that what kind of spawned the Lander line, so to speak,
Yeah.
in terms of names?
Yeah, and it's interesting because sometimes I find an interesting name. So the name Lander, the original idea came from Lander, Wyoming. It's a small town like backwoods,
Okay.
Wyoming. Cool little town. But I've always kind of kept this list of knife names over the past 5 to 8 years.
Hmm.
And Lander just kind of has this interesting name. It's short, it's 2 letters, it's easy to pronounce, memorable. And so I got it from Lander, Wyoming, but then I'm like, Lander, Wyoming is not necessarily the story that's going to take this where it needs to go. And I was like, well, what
Right.
about the lunar lander? What if we applied it to the moon and kind of this idea of um, taking risks and taking chances. And so
Hmm.
that's kind of where the story started to develop. I feel very strongly about stories behind products.
Right.
Right now, we're working on the OCT. This is a new knife that our in-house designer designed, Matt Fitz, and it's called the Old College Try. He was in school when he designed it,
Hmm.
and we kind of had a design, but I'm like, Fitz, we need a story. Like we can't just
Right.
throw it out there. Story resonates with people. And so we just kind of played with names and I was like, what about Old College Try?
Hmm.
OCT for short. So I feel like names are so important to the overall sales pitch to somebody about a product, right? Like we designed this to be pretty casual on a college campus or like in an office.
Hmm.
Like it doesn't have to be big and bulky and kind of in your face. So long answer, but yes, the lander name is part of space
Hmm.
and that's sort of the story we've crafted around it, and we've had a lot of fun with it.
Well, I think yeah, I was gonna say I love the name. The OCT looks like such an awesome knife, just in terms of size knives. And also too, I think I remember one of the pitch knives where you talked about the finger choil test, where
Yeah,
you could reach the end of that and hit that.
the finger test. I like to be able to touch the end of my blades, and part of that is when my kids were littler, I used to draw things in church form, and then
Hmm.
I would sit here and cut it out like this, almost use it like a
Oh.
pencil grip,
Hmm.
and I would cut the things out, like whether it was a doll or a dog or whatever, I'd cut it out for them so that they could play with it in church. Um, and I, I like knowing where the end of a blade is personally.
Hmm.
Some of our knives are a little bigger and you can't get to the end of them quite, but that finger test has always been something that I enjoy.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I like there is something also to like intimidation wise, like there's certain knives that you could pull out and people are like,
Yeah,
what? And then there's other knives where it's like, so you pull out and they're like, oh, that's look at that cute little thing. I'm like, well, it's a knife.
yeah,
It's not supposed to be cute, but there is something to it where it's like, oh, that's not really threatening. And I mean, like my workplace is if I go into the offices, they're like knives can't be over X amount of a size and everything
yeah,
and state limits. And so smaller is still just as functional. And like it's very interesting, even like introducing someone to whittling and then like giving them a small knife, letting because then that small one, that little bit of blade offers a little bit more versus like I could give someone like a bigger knife and then they like do something. Like I remember teaching someone to whittle and they're like, and it's like, be careful. There's someone standing next to you or sitting next to you. You may stab them. Don't like yank so hard kind of thing. And they're like, oh. And then they promptly cut themselves anyway. And it's like, well, now you're a knife owner. Go get a
Yep.
band-aid and get back to it kind of thing.
Yep.
But like that was I think there's something to that story. And names too. Like even if you think about, I know there's some knife brands where it's like the numbers like the such and such 1, 2, 3, 4 or something like that. And it's really hard to think about that versus like there's certain names that like if you say the name of the knife, like the tuna, like we all think of a particular like, oh yeah, there's that one. Or I'm trying to think
Yep.
about or the like the Leatherman signal or something like certain
Yeah.
things the name sticks and then it connects.
Yeah.
And like I like how OCT where it's that's super simple. And you're like, what's that? And then explains. And I hadn't even realized what that button till you posted on Facebook and you showed the design there. I was like, that is like such a neat little Easter egg kind of thing
Yeah.
that people
Yep.
aren't going to necessarily get, but then you figure it out and it makes there's like a more of an emotional connection to your tool.
Correct.
And then that's it makes you have like as weird as it sounds, like kind of like a bond with the item that you have. And like this is mine. Like I've
Yeah.
made it.
And, I've thought a lot this past week about um, knives keep stories.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that, like even like this OCT, this is one that Matt Fitz has carried. It's starting to patina on the edges. It's aluminum. And so that's part of the game. If you drop it, it's going to start to
Hmm.
patina. Um, I've got knives from my dad or my grandpa, and
Hmm.
like just holding it, you're like, okay, I remember this, this, and this. It
Yeah.
harbors memory and it tells story within it. And I don't know that there are many objects out there that do that. Like your shoes are going to wear out, your shirt,
Hmm.
your hat, like it's all going to wear out.
Yeah.
And but knives, they get passed down. They become
Hmm.
a grandpa's buck knife, like the kids fight
Yeah.
over it or whatever, right? Like,
Hmm.
and I take that really seriously as a maker of things. Like I want to create things that last, that have value, but also that people attach their own story to. We'll give you a
Hmm.
story out of the gate with a name and that sort of thing. But after that,
Yeah.
it's your adventure, it's your story, it's your wears
Hmm.
and tears on the thing that really give it the value that is meaningful.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and it adds it like I said, value personal. Like my dad did the same thing when I was down there visiting them recently. He gave me one of his old Barlow knives. And I mean it's it's he's sharpened it so many times the blade's slanted funny now so it's kind of
Mhm.
like and so like it's old it's lasted and so like I can hold it and I'm probably not going to use it it's going to go in my keepsakes because it's special but like I can look and remember the times when like I wanted to roast a marshmallow or something and my dad's like oh yeah and pulls it out and I mean and like first knives are big things too like first times like sure there's a lot of firsts for us as we grow and everything, but like first time like when you get a car or first knife or first things like that, those that last like leave a mark kind of thing. Like I don't know if you could remember your first computer necessarily, but I can't necessarily because it's not the quite the same thing because those things run out and then go away versus if I take care of a knife, like it's going to be around, it's going to get handed down, it's going to
Yeah.
have like flavor to it, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have this is the I have some more family thing. Well, things this is actually something too. I was going to ask now with the fact that you and your wife are co-owners of NAFs. How does that work with like the work family life balance since you're both technically coworkers and obviously partners in husband and wife raising your kids
Yeah.
outside so it's like how does that balance.
Again, it probably doesn't. I think that this business has been pervasive in our family for 7.5 years now. I mean,
Mhm.
the number of evenings and mornings and late nights to get this thing off the ground it's been astronomical, really. And
Mm,
I'm not going to say that it hasn't caused friction. It has.
right.
There have been nights where Athena's like, "I hate this thing," and I'm like, "You know what? I do too." And
Right.
it's, I think that we have been able to see a future in it in a way that has been really good. And it's like her saying, "Hey, those 300 kitty knives aren't going to sell." And I'm saying, "Yeah, but watch this." And
Hmm.
I think if watch this works enough and the proof of concept and the minimum viable product works often enough, eventually your accidental co-founder will start to say, "You might be onto something."
Hmm.
And I think what we've found is it's like it is okay to say we're not talking about the business right now, or like,
Hmm.
"Hey, this is a bad moment for this." But we've also there have been moments like we a few years ago we were driving from Washington State to Utah on this big long drive, and we would have these like 3 hour conversations about the business and our future and how does our house tie into that? How do our kids and where do we live and all of this? Because we've really built a life around a business in some ways,
Hmm.
and that's been okay. But I think even like here's a good example for you: personal finances and business finances. When you own a small business, so for instance, if I have, I'm just going to throw a number out, $1 million of inventory sitting in my warehouse.
Hmm.
Me as a business owner, I get taxed on $1 million of inventory. So I might have taken home, like my take home pay might be $50,000, but if I have $1 million of inventory in the warehouse, I
Okay.
made $1 million and $1,050,000. Um, so that plays into your entire life. And so I always tell people like, "Hey, if you want to start a business, go for it, but it will be pervasive."
Hmm.
And again, you've got to figure out how to manage the imbalance in a way that
Hmm.
makes sense for you and your family. And there might be moments where you're like, "No, I'm not, I don't want to do this." And
Right.
you say, "Cool, let's shut her down." And we've had that conversation a few times over the past 7.5 years. Like, do we want to keep doing this?
Hmm.
It's like, well, let's look at it. 3 hour conversation. Cool. Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
But it's laying it out, it's talking through it all the time.
I think that that speaks to the importance of like communication because obviously we look at they talk about like the habits of effective leaders and everything, but like if you can't communicate, it doesn't matter. You won't be a good spouse. You won't be a good
Yep.
business, boss, coworker, whatnot. You can't communicate. You're just gonna fail. So it says like that's really important. Just hearing that too and being able to, and also thinking through the idea that like starting business, because I think sometimes people like to compartmentalize too much. And if you're self-employed, you're running your own business, you have to kind of realize that like the business and you are kind of like intertwined almost maybe to some extent almost irrevocably depending on like how you're going to do. And this was technically like my closing question, but I feel like it leads into this really well. But like so obviously your kids are younger. So when your kids are adults and they're older and they look back, what do you hope that they're going to say about Dad's Knife Company?
This is the one question on the ones you sent over that I don't have a super good answer to. I guess my hope is that even though it was pervasive in their growing
Hmm.
up years, it wasn't invasive,
Right.
right? Like, and they can look at that however they want. Like, I could see a world where our kids come here to work, not at the top of the totem pole, but at the bottom, right? To
Hmm.
start sweeping the floor or clean the toilet, sort of thing. And if they would like to move up in it, great. You got to earn it just like anybody else. But I guess my hope is that they're like any kid, right? My dad does this, and
Hmm.
there's a pride in that, even if they can't describe it perfectly. What my son the other day, he's like, "What do you actually do at work, Dad?" And I was like, "Well, a lot of things." I kind of made him a list just out of the
Right.
air, but um, I hope that there's a family pride in an honest living. Now,
Hmm.
whether they're involved in it 10, 15 years from now, I don't really care, like one way or another. If this is something they want to be involved in, sure, start at the bottom. But my hope is that they know that we made an honest living in a way that provided for what they need, their food,
Hmm.
water, shelter, right? And I think
Right.
as a parent, that's probably the ultimate goal is making sure that your kids feel safe and that they feel like uh, they have a place where there's peace at home. Like we've already talked about.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. Well, for not knowing how to answer it, that was still a really good answer. Um,
Thanks.
and I really appreciate that too, because again, too, anytime you have something that's so, big, it's like, well, how does it affect, like my wife and I have conversations about that with, because our daughters, we help out in our church's youth group and we talk about like, oh, it's X amount of time till she's in youth group with us. And it's like, but we've had conversations about like being careful not to allow this to overtake family. And sometimes I'm really bad with staying off my phone because sometimes like something email comes through from another leader or something, and I get a little bit like, oh, I should answer this now. And it's like, no, it's dinner time, and my wife and daughter like look at me like, are you serious? I'm like,
Yep.
mm. So maybe taking, so then I have to be like, okay, my wife's like, you should leave the phone in the other room. Like I argue, but I know ultimately like that's a way smarter idea is just like remove the temptation. So like, do you foresee NAFS as a company sticking around for the long haul? So this is something that you could potentially hand down to your kids?
I think that's such a good question. I want to. I was listening to a podcast from another knife company just yesterday. They're like, we're building a business that is going to be around for another 100 years. I
Hmm.
think the reality is nobody knows, right? Like,
Right.
I think I've taken this knife business one day at a time, one week at a time, month, year. Would I love for it to be around 20, 30 years from now? Yeah, I
Right.
would. I think that would be really, really cool. 100 years from now? Yeah, I think that'd be awesome.
Hmm.
But that almost feels like hubris to be like, yeah,
Right.
we're gonna be here 100 years from now. Um, I just I guess I'm looking to the future, excited about the future, but I wouldn't wager to say like, yeah, we're absolutely gonna like what happens if the economy tanks? What happens,
Hmm.
add whatever scenario. And so I'm kind of a
Right.
realist in that. Like my hope is that we can employ good people for a lot of years and that we can create jobs and create opportunities in the world for a lot of years.
Hmm.
Um, but I'd be lying if I were to say I want to be butt in a chair at age 70 slinging knives. That's probably not what I want to be doing.
Right.
Like you talk about volunteering with church. I my son is in Scouts right now, and I've been
Hmm.
volunteering a lot with Scouts. I really enjoy it. I think that
Right.
um, if you can define your life by like creating value wherever you are, my hope, maybe the way I want to answer this is I want to be creating value
Right.
wherever I go, whether that's in Scouts, whether that's at work, whether that's at church, right? Like how do you make the world a better place and create value? And so my hope for NAFS is that whatever the future holds for it, is we are creating value and
Mhm.
we're helping people along some life journey in a valuable way. Be
I
useful.
I think I really like that answer. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, and it kind of that hopeful optimism of the future. Kind of one of those things. Seeing something being built is really cool, and I imagine it's even hard. It's obviously cool to do it, but like very hard to the grindstone that you're not just getting to have the fun times, but also like the
Yeah.
frustrating times. Like I was listening to a podcast that you were on where you're talking about like getting a whole batch of bad knives, or even with what was it, the Yipper, where there was that
Yeah.
all with that, and I'm like, oh my goodness. But also in the same sense, like I really appreciate the fact that you like were right up front, like, oh yeah, this is what happened. That's not good, as opposed to sometimes we've seen product makers, and not just, I'm not saying knives in general, but like just in general, where they ship a bad product, but they're like, this is the best thing ever. And then when people are like, no, no, this is actually like terrible. Um, and then they're like, no, 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 you're just doing it wrong. And so being like, I think like that. that clarity says a lot about a company beyond just like their products. I think behind the company, the people running it, like if you make good products, but you're a bad company to deal with, you have bad products. And so I think that's a really good thing. How you look at it affects the overall, like, oh, that makes sense kind of thing. So I have some kind of fun questions for you as we're kind of
Yep.
like wrapping up because I know we had about an hour and I don't want to take up
Yeah,
your whole day.
absolutely. You're totally good.
So,
I'm gonna check you're all good. I don't
all
have
right,
anything until 1 today, so I have time, but let's not go till 1 if we
all
can
right.
help
I was gonna say I don't want to hold you up forever.
it.
So, what is the most unexpected thing you've carried in your pocket that actually came in handy?
Um, Man, I've carried the same things for years and years. Um, I do, maybe I can go like a hiking route on this.
Hmm.
I have a little like hiking bag that I just throw in my bag. It's got like matches, like thermal blanket or whatever, just like stay alive stuff in it. Having a set of tweezers in there. One time I got a cactus
Oh,
spine like deep in my foot, and having a set of tweezers in there was brilliant. So I might say, and in fact, the Sancho pen, where's the Sancho pen? It has tweezers in it. I use the toothpick and tweezers on the Sancho pen more than anything,
oh,
any other tool, especially the toothpick. So I'd say toothpick and tweezers is my answer.
I love the Sancho pen. The Sancho pen is like up there on my like Grail wish list because I don't like constantly get new gear. And so
Yeah,
especially too, you have when you have good gear, like I'm a big fan, like I'm just gonna use that gear until it breaks. So
yeah,
it's like there's the balance of like I really like that, but I'm like, but this works. Um, and then it's also the same sense. I'm like, well, I could just get a big crystal and just use that by itself, kind of thing,
you could. Yep.
which would work, kind of thing. But like, I love the tweezer and toothpick king. It's like the Swiss Army knife. Like,
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
everyone's like, why do you need that? You don't know how much you're gonna need it until you have it, and then all of a sudden
Yes.
it's like, oh. So here's the one. So what's the most unusual place inspiration for a knife design has struck you?
Um, you know, I want to say that knife design is sort of this lightning bolt. It's not for me. It's almost more of like a an old time water wheel for me. Like lightning
Hmm.
bolts are just full of electricity. A water wheel is like, yeah, there's some electricity there, but like it's going to take a long time to actually get electricity out of that thing. But a lot of my knife ideas actually come from Montana. My wife's
Hmm.
family has a place, a cabin in the woods up there, and there's no internet. It's quiet. And there's a whole bunch of books about like mountain men and like all sorts of
Oh,
like
that's awesome.
random cabin things. And so you get in a space like that, it's just inspirational. So that's
Hmm.
where I drew the banter. That's where I drew the original Sendy. Lander, Wyoming is on the way to Montana. So I think sometimes
Okay.
these long road trips is where ideas sort of formulate for
Oh,
me.
okay. I was gonna say, I appreciate the fact that like you're like, oh no, it's not like I like walk out and then all of a sudden I know what I'm going to build. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the author Cal Newport.
Mm-hmm.
He's written books like Digital Minimalism, So Good They Can't Ignore You, but he also talks about there's a book that he had written not super recently, but it's called Slow Productivity.
Hmm.
And he talks about, especially like he gives different examples of people like these things that turned out really great, like Lin-Manuel Miranda and Hamilton and like his stuff. He talked
Yeah.
about like his initial play started when he was at Roberts Wesleyan, it's something like that. And then it didn't go well, but he kind of refined it till he went and he did it really well. So he talked about the idea that productivity sometimes happens slowly behind the scenes and then and I think too, so it's one of those things where a lot of times people like look at the end product and they're like, oh gosh, that's like really awesome, but they don't realize that actually this was like slowly percolating behind the scenes this whole time. And then you're
It's the
like,
overnight success that took 10 years, took a
right.
decade. Yep.
And then boom, it's there kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right. So which of your family knives would you hand down as an heirloom and why?
Um, I get really excited about the Little Lulu.
Hmm.
That's the one that we've made ourselves. We launched on Kickstarter a couple months ago. We just bought a
Hmm.
bunch of machinery. I think this is sort of our current pinnacle of what can we create,
Hmm.
um, ground up, and this probably would be the one I'd hand down right now.
I also think too, like you don't necessarily advertise it, but that makes a solid, like that's a solid knife that I'd hand off to a kid because
Yeah,
there's no knife to close. It's not like you're because like I remember closing my blade on my fingers as a kid. Like there's no closing. It's like and that's it, and it's easily handleable. Like so, I love the design of that one very
thank
much
you.
so. So this one, maybe you should consider this. But if your kids designed a knife, what's one feature you're sure it would have?
I got three girls. It feels like it would have a hairbrush on it somewhere.
I mean, it's not a bad idea if you think about it. I mean,
It's not
you have the tweezers or anything. You could do like a lander comb
a
instead.
comb. It would have a comb somewhere because like, where's my hairbrush is real at my house.
That is the one thing. Like I shave my head, so I have no hair. So we make jokes about that all the time. It's like common in the youth group. They'll make sure they'll be like, I think on Discord, their title for me is like Hair of Elisha because obviously, and I was like, well, you know what happened to the kids that made fun of Elisha? You know,
I
the
think it was
bear.
a
And
bear, wasn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a bear came out, and they're like, "Are you going to call a bear?" I'm like,
Don't
"You
push
don't
your
know
luck,
that."
kid.
I was like, "We're here at camp, especially there's a local camp that we our church is connected to, and I was like, "We're at camp, or you could be at camp and it could happen, so be careful." And they're like, "Sure." I'm like, "That is until you see one." But so it's like that. So, but my daughter's like that, and it's like, like or braiding, like with three girls, I'm sure like you're like a master of like hair braiding at this point.
I'm not. There's a reason we have three girls and one boy. I think my wife has 75% of the competence and I have 25%. Like that's a real thing. So she mostly does hair. Like I can braid, I can get a ponytail together, but
Mhm.
I'm not very good at it, if I'm being honest.
I can't do any braids, but I can do ponytails, and but it is one of those things too where like it's fun with our kids too, obviously, like teaching them like our hobbies and stuff. Like my daughter and I will play video games together, but we like to go out hiking together. We haven't done it
Yeah,
that much this summer, but there is something really fun, like when you're learning something together or like you're teaching them and like being able to share that and then see like that spark of
yeah,
like, oh, kind of thing. Like that's
yep,
something really fun about that. Like even with
yep.
um teaching like when I was teaching some of the younger kids to, and I ended up buying, and I maybe be judged, but I bought like the Walmart bug out as a
No
first time.
judgment. You got to start
Well,
somewhere.
I'll be honest, like I know it's not like perfect, but like I took it out of the package, I did some stuff with it, sharpened it a bit more before I gave it, and I was like, wow, this is actually like for $10, like that's a whole
Oh
heck
yeah,
of a knife.
it's a big
And
deal.
but it's like one of those things where it's like they're like, oh, and then explaining like the clutch lock or whatever Walmart wants to call it. They're like,
Yeah,
the bar lock or something. But like this is so you don't cut your fingers because you're not going to hold it. And they're like, oh, I'm like, because if you're not careful, you will. But
yep.
so is there, and this is another thing, family oriented, is there like a particular like fun activity that the Peterson family likes to partake of?
So probably like the most recurring thing. Like we like to camp, we like to get outside, hike and do stuff, but ball tag around the house has been like a 10-year
Oh.
staple at my house. And it's fun because I like to dive in and it gets my aggression out toward my kids. I can pelt them with a soft ball and they love it. It's really fun. So we have played ball tag, and it's just simple. It's a ball, and if the ball hits you, you're it. And we played that for years and years, and the kids have loved it for years and years. And we'll get the neighborhood kids out, and
Mhm.
it's a big smorgasbord of ball tag, and just very fun. And
That's
I think sometimes people are like, "Well, you need complex activities." It's like, no, like I've watched a kid play with a piece of string for hours. Like if you're willing to get it down on that string level with the kid, like you can have
Hmm.
fun. Ball tag is part of that for me.
I'm gonna have to try that. And yeah, I was gonna say physical activity, burning off energy. There's
Yeah,
just something fun about it too. And I like
yeah,
how you're like, it allows me to get out my aggression on my kids in a safe, in a good way. I'm like, because like, yes, there's definitely some times where the kids are like, you're like, oh my goodness, like, why am I a parent? Like, what did I do?
yes, yes,
I just signed on to 18 years at least of this kind of thing.
yes,
But then there's those high moments where you're like, oh my goodness, this is like amazing being a parent kind of thing.
yes.
And you look at those, and then again, like we talked about, legacy is just such a huge thing. Um, I think that's just really cool. But well, those were all the kind of questions I had. But like as we're kind of wrapping up, can you tell everybody where to find you?
Yeah, knafs.com. That's knafs.com is the best spot to find us. But we're on all the socials, Instagram, Facebook. Don't spend too much time there, but we are there. And then we run a YouTube channel where we release a video every week, a
Mhm.
show called Naps at Night. So if you're curious about pocket knives, we have put out a ton of resources, and we tried to, obviously, we sell stuff. We'd love it if you bought one of our knives. That would be great. But at the same time, we try to just educate people about pocket knives because I think that's an important thing that our society needs these days too, right? We always look at them as tools, not weapons,
Mhm.
and it's really fun to be in that tool space and help people understand like these are tools for adventures. So
Right.
yeah, naps.com.
Awesome. I mean, it makes me think there was a quote my grandfather would say. My dad told me, he's like, if you take care of your tools will take care of you.
Yes.
And I think that's really awesome. But Ben, this has been like super awesome. Thank you so much for being willing
Yeah.
to come in and talk like knives. I know we did a lot of knife talk, but talk about family and kind of like pull back the curtain a bit on that. I really appreciate like all of that and the wisdom there. So, thanks so much for that. And maybe down the road we can have you back again for like an
Love it.
update. But I appreciate
Love it.
that.
Thank you for having me, Dan. I so appreciate it. I appreciated the invitation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But just again, everybody too, if you haven't looked him up, like you said, he provided the links, nafs.com. You should 100% check that out. But thank you everyone for listening.